Boys in the Hood.
Whether it's in a bad light, they still telling you you're somebody on this
Right.
side of the tracks. I never thought I had enough.
So I got Abdul Ghaffar back on the channel, and he wanted to do the movie Boys in the Hood, written and directed by John Singleton. Rest in power to him. And he came on to do The Woman King with me. That's the movie I initially wanted to do because that's the movie that sparked the idea for this channel. But he say that Boys in the Hood best relates to his life story. So we gonna get straight into it. Like tell the world why this movie relates to you so much.
Um, First off, I want to say all praise be to Allah. I send peace and blessings upon His messenger, the Prophet Muhammad, and also I want to say Assalamu alaikum to all my brothers and sisters out there. When it comes to Boys in the Hood, for those of us who grew up in the hood back in the 90s or the early millennium, this is a classic. You feel me?
Right.
So when you presented me with the question of which movie relates to your life the most, I had to really sit back and think, and I couldn't really put my finger on just one movie. But what kept coming to my mind over and over was Boys in the Hood. That was the only one I could say, like, for the most sums up my life and my childhood growing up and the things that I experienced. So I went on ahead and went with that. And I think that a lot of us growing up in our era or growing up in our environment can relate to a lot of what was going on in Boys in the Hood.
Right. All right. But which character do you identify with the most of?
Well, my favorite, right? When I was growing up, man, my favorite was Monster, right?
All right.
So a lot of people they relate to Doughboy, like Doughboy, he was the main character. So a lot of people relate to Doughboy. Some people relate to Trey, the old Mick, Mac Daddy player type of guy.
Right.
But when I was growing up and being influenced by the movie, I was influenced by a little bit of all of them, but the one that I gravitated to the most was Monster.
Right.
Monster was his homeboy, was Doughboy's homeboy, but Monster just had that he had that different type of gangster aura, that I just gravitated to where everybody else kind of bowed down to Doughboy because Doughboy was that was the homie in the block, on the block. They all hung out at his house. He grew up in the set, but Monster didn't bow down to Doughboy. Monster had his own little gangsterism and mentality. He like you the homie, but I got my own say so in the hood. So that was who I gravitated to the most.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, because even though this is an urban classic, I'm pretty sure most Generation Z's out there really don't know this movie like that. You know what I'm saying? Even if they know the name of it, because it's that much of a classic. So, Boys in the Hood, written and directed by John Singleton, is about three childhood friends growing up in South Central, in the early 90s, where it was saturated with gang violence, poverty, and racism. And these is three kids being kids trying to grapple with the conditions of their environment while being conditioned by their environment. you know. But the difference is the things that nudged them in different directions was Trey was raised by a single black man, a single father. His mom brought him to his dad and told him, like, man, you got to raise him. So he was raised by his father, who did not live that lifestyle, that street lifestyle. He was a positive role model, and not only that, he wasn't just there. He was attentive. You know what I'm saying, towards Trey.
Mhm.
So whereas Doughboy and them, they grew up without a father. So the storyline gets deeper than what people think. They see it's cracking and all that. Like, yeah, it's cracking, but John Singleton, in my belief, didn't want you to see just that. He
Yeah.
honed in on the importance of a young black child being raised by his father and how much of an impact that can have on him, and a child not being raised by his father and how much of an impact that can have on him. while growing up in any environment. So,
Yeah.
but diving even deeper into it, like, what decisions that one of the characters made in the movie that relates to a decision you made in your childhood?
Huh? Man, that's easy. I'm sure you can recall this when me, Rah Rah, and Lil T and Reggie went to go steal out the store.
All right,
You
yeah,
feel me? It was summer. It was summertime, and we like, man, we want some water balloons. We want some candy. So we all decide we just gonna go to Top Value. I think I was 8 years old at the time. I was 8, and I think Lil T was like 9, Rah Rah was 9, and Reggie was like 11 or something like that.
right,
And we all like, we just gonna go to the store and steal. Back then, stealing, it was frowned upon and bad. But when you're growing up in the poverty and stricken environment, a lot of times it's encouraged.
right,
If you ain't got the money, just put it in your pocket and take it. They're not gonna miss it. You feel me? They're not gonna
right,
take a major hit by it. But at this particular time in your young mind, you think you in need of this in order
right,
for you to have fun.
right,
So we go up in the store, go steal, we stuff in our pockets. As soon as we walk out the store, we get jammed up by security. So long story short, we end up getting a ticket, all had to show up to court and fight the case and all of that. So it's just like when Doughboy, him and Chris, hey, like, man, we fit to go to the store. You feel me? And
right,
Ricky, like, you ain't got no money. He like, I'm going anyway.
right, right, right,
But that's how I was as a kid, man. I'm going anyway, whether I got money or not, because I'm not thinking about the value that other people were placing on this particular piece of property that they're selling in order to provide for their family.
right,
In my young mind, I'm just selfishly thinking about myself, just like the rest of my crew was. We were just thinking about ourselves, trying to get ours so we can just live to have fun for another day in the hood.
right,
Right? So Doughboy got caught, got put in the back of the police car, and went on to juvie. We got caught, got put in the back of the police car, and they ended up writing us a ticket and just dropping us off at the spot. And I had to show up to court. And from there on, I ended up getting a California ID at 8 years old. And I ended up having to take some classes, some counseling classes to try to break my mind out of this mode of thinking that stealing is okay and going out and disrespecting other people's property is okay.
and why didn't that work for you as a kid? Why didn't that having to go through that actually nudge you in the other direction when you've seen the consequences that can come from that?
Well, the consequences that came from it was not something that was encouraged to be feared. What was encouraged was look out for yourself and get whatever you can get by any means necessary. So getting picked up by the police, it wasn't an uncommon thing to see people getting picked up by the police, going to jail, just like our older brothers.
Right,
Growing up watching them, they was getting arrested many times at school. They was getting arrested for stealing, and they going out stealing and coming back home with the goods. And I'm watching all this and that, and I'm like, dang, it's that easy? That's all you got to do is do a run out, and you can
right,
have 10 different pairs of shoes and some fresh shirts and some video games.
right,
So it wasn't like I was the only one that was doing it, or this was a new thing that was being put out there. It's like, nah, multiple people in the community are doing this particular thing. They going in and they stealing and they looking at it like it's nothing. You feel me? Not to put any type of negative image on our parents, right? But our parents, without their knowledge, was creating an environment that made it okay for these particular things to go about without you really batting an eye at it, as if it's just, something so terrible. It's so common, but it's only a problem once you get caught.
exactly,
Now
exactly,
you caught. Now you got to face the consequences. And for me, I got my butt whooped. I remember Pops whooping my butt, right? And I remember him taking me to where I had to go. He made me do some type of workout at a park one time. Me, Mark, and
and
and, and
Markel,
Markel.
right,
Yeah. made us all do the workout at the park because we screwing up. So
Right.
he decided, I'm gonna take y'all to the park and just make y'all do this hard, strong workout till y'all drop, right?
Right.
So it's little things like that where it's like it's not seeming like it's too much of a big deal. Even
Right.
though in their minds as parents, it's a big deal because you don't want your kid to be hauled off to jail and you have to deal with that heartache, but not knowing how to express to your kids how to go about it a different way, and that this is a terrible thing, that it can lead your life down a path that you possibly don't want to go.
Right.
So for me, looking at it, I'm just like, okay, it's a slap on the wrist, really, because all I got to do is go to these classes. All I got to do is get a California ID. All I got to do is show up to court. I ain't got to spend no time in juvie. You feel me? I ain't got to stop hanging out with my friends. None of these things. So the consequences at that point in time in my life wasn't as harsh just yet to really snap on that light bulb. And then not only that, I didn't have that motivating individual like Trey did. Trey had his pops. You know, his pops was on some real black power, you know, stick together, elevate your mind. So he had that kind of kept him steady. Like you said, Doughboy and them, they didn't have that. So I was, as a kid, a little bit of Doughboy. I was a little bit of Trey. But as I grew up, then I was Doughboy and Monster. You feel me? Now I'm seeking that type of reputation and that type of status in the hood.
Right. And what people need to understand is, because what we're doing is comparing and contrast as we're relating. And comparing Trey upbringing with Doughboy's upbringing, they was raised right across the street in the exact same environment. But it was the household. That's your first school. It's the dominant narratives within your household that's going to have the biggest impact on the psyche of your child. So, parents, I was growing up used to hearing, don't do as I do as I say.
Yeah.
Come on, man, that's false. A child is going to compare what you're saying to what you're doing. And if what you're saying contradicts what you're doing, then we're not trying to hear none of that. You know? So Trey, his dominative within his household, his dad was always on him. He was always giving them game. He was always giving them ways of how to be a man, ways on how to express his masculinity. You know, having talks with him, wanting to know what's going on in his life. Whereas growing up, I've never heard parents ask their kids, like, what did you do today? Like, really sit there and care, like, every step of the way, what did you do? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then talk, oh, you got a girlfriend? Oh, let's talk about that. You know about sex? You know what? I mean, I ain't never heard none of that. So,
Yeah.
my narratives came from the hood. It came from y'all, which came from the hood. Raised by the
Yeah.
criminal and gang culture, like you put in your insight statements for the board. Like, man, it was, and it was exciting for a kid because that rush of getting something now.
Yeah.
When they telling me, wait till you're 18 and you can go to college and have everything that you want. Man, I'm 8 years old and I'm hungry. What you talk about wait till 18? Like, so as a
Yeah.
child, when you're deprived of things, yo, it tickles your curiosity. You begin
Mm-hmm.
to notice every little thing around you because you're itching to get rid of that deep want that you have of being hungry, of not having no shoes, of not getting nothing for Christmas, of all these things. So with that vividness you have, you're seeing, oh, all I gotta do is move a little piece of rock and I can get some bread. All I gotta do is, like you said, run out this store and I can eat right now. All I gotta do is run up in the shoe warehouse and switch my shoes out and walk out, and I got some clean kicks now for school. All the girls gonna be on me. All I gotta do is fire his shit up and I'm gonna have respect now. So for a child, it's the physical teachings that matters more than the verbal teachings. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's best to have two and to lead by example as a parent. So, but for back into the movie,
I
what
want I want to comment on what you was I want to comment on what you just said, right? because you said something that was interesting when you're looking at child development, because I can speak for myself, right? Once you reach a certain age, I would say probably the ages of like 9 years old and above, you
Right.
start looking for your identity.
Right.
You start looking towards, well, who I'm gonna look up to and who am I gonna follow?
Right.
Who am I gonna allow to have the biggest influence upon me? And a lot of the times, the people that's gonna have the biggest impact are those people who have what you want.
Right.
You feel me? Whether it's respect in the community, whether it's financial, whether it's materialistic things, and then not don't let them take a good liking to you, and then they start to just tell you a little something. So now your ears are wide open, and that's where you're gonna gravitate to if you don't have anything else pulling you in a different direction.
Right.
So a kid is looking for some type of influence, whether it's positive or negative. He just looking for something that could tell him, hey, you're somebody.
Right.
You feel me? Whether it's in a bad light, they still telling you you're somebody on this
Right.
side of the tracks. So come
Right.
over here and come do this, and you will be embraced. And that's what a kid is looking for. A kid is looking for an opportunity to be embraced. And
Right.
that's what penetrated me the most when I was growing up. I was always looking for an opportunity to be embraced.
Right.
You feel me? Because I never felt like I had enough, whether it was money, whether it was material things, whether it was respect, whether it was attention, whether it was even smarts, intellect, intelligence. I never thought I had enough of these things. So I went out to go see how can I get more of these things, not reflecting on the consequences that may come if I take a certain route to get these particular things. All I know is I'm getting it right now. So it's making me feel good. It's making me feel in a place of confidence. So you know what? I'm going to continue to do this. Even if you try to tell me that, oh, there's a different option. You're just telling me this is a different option. You're not going to take the time to show me what this different option is and make sure that my immature mind can grasp the concept that you come up with in order for me to grow in a different direction.
Right.
So what you're doing, you're just passing through.
Right.
Like most people do. They pass through and they drop the seed on the soil and thinking like, oh, it's going to dig into the soil and sprout.
Right. They
That's
don't
not the
cultivate
case.
it. Yeah.
You feel me? You got to sit there and look at the soil and see what type of soil it is. That's why some people, they go to different places and they bring back soil. They import soil because the soil that they're working with at home is not that quality. So
Right.
they import soil in order to plant these seeds. So you come into this ground, this kid's mind, you coming into his life and not analyzing the soil that you're working with.
Right.
The soil might be so hard, like almost concrete, to where you really have to break it up and dig up in there and work in it, right? Like you said, cultivate it, then plant that seed, then give it some water and come back, give it some more water. Make sure ain't nothing blocking its sunlight, making sure it's getting all the nutrition that it needs, and then it's going to start to sprout. And then as it sprout, then it's becoming stronger and stronger and stronger to the point where you ain't going to need to watch the tree no more. The tree is what it is.
Right.
You feel me? Or that bush is already what it is. It has sprouted into this natural state to where you could just sit back and say, man, that's a gorgeous rose bush right there.
Right. And it has learned. Yeah, and it also has learned on how to grow on its own because of what you did in the early stages. So
exactly.
Based on what a kid is given in this early stages, is taking that for the rest of his life. And that's what the board wanted us to understand, is that the decisions we made 16, 17, 18 actually goes back to 6, 7, and 8. Because it's the early lessons you feed into this child that's going to carry with them, and he think it's the immediate situation at hand that caused him to react the way that he did, when really it stems all the way back a decade ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And once again, we understand, for the world that's listening, that it's a thin line between explaining and excusing. We're not excusing nothing, but we're explaining that as a child who is deemed to be innocent, we can only learn what the world gives us to learn. And if our immediate surroundings are teaching us this warped belief and we adopt that, that's what we're going to project. And then the fact that everybody learned differently, some people's rock bottom is not the same as other people rock bottom.
Yeah.
But one thing is for sure is that everybody will get it. And with this channel, we just hoping that people get it a little sooner rather than later. You know what I'm saying? But going back to the movie, another thing I identified with was the racial tensions, specifically with the police. You know what I'm saying? Because I had those moments where on Anaheim and Cherry, they snatched me up and threatened to drop me off in enemy hood. I had those moments when he had his knee on my back, the gun at my head at Cabrillo, and talk about I should have shot you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had those moments. And one day I was walking into the clothing store on Molino in Anaheim with some homies, banged out, and it was an off-duty cop. And he looking at us from behind the counter and just shaking his head like he was black too. Shaking his head, but you could see the badge, see the gun. And he like, y'all don't even know what y'all doing. Just out of nowhere. And we looking at him like, not trying to say nothing because he already got a badge. We like, man, we done walked up in here. But he like, y'all don't even know who y'all real enemy is. And that never hit me until I was in the pen and elevating my mind. He like, y'all don't even know who y'all real enemy is. And he could have been talking about various things. He could have been talking about the police themselves. He could have been talking about the government / police. He could have been just talking about us because I was my worst enemy as well. And he was like, y'all don't even know who y'all real enemy is. And now it's settled in. And it's like, wow. Those who you think your enemy are really not your enemies. And you need, and like I did, we need to reverse engineer our mindset. You know what I'm saying? Because nobody's winning. You look at every gang war, who won? When you talk about we won, that means we control everything now. We implement the laws and policies now. They're functioning off of all currency, all rules, all authority. All this is ours. Nobody won. All we doing is taking loss after loss after loss after loss. You know what I'm saying? So, but going back to the movie, like, what is some things you seen the characters go through that made you reflect on what's going on in a larger society?
Okay. For one, how many mothers, right, be placed in the position like Trey moms was placed, right?
Right.
But not only just Trey moms, but Doughboy's mom.
Right.
You feel me? To where they feel like they really don't have a grip on things. And that's a lot of places, bro. You would look at a mother, and this is one of the reasons, not only because I'm a Muslim, so my religious belief plays a huge part in how I see women, how I see mothers, right? But just growing up with our mother, you know, and watching the movie and looking at their moms, I have a soft spot in my heart for mothers because you don't understand the difficulty that a lot of these mothers, when they trying to raise these kids,
Man.
that they going through. For one, she's not a man. She has somewhat of an idea of how a man is supposed to be because she's a woman and she has been with men and she's around men, but she's not a man. So she doesn't know how to really cultivate, develop this thing in this child, this boy. Right. You feel me? So as Trey mother did, she pawned him off. Like, you know, I told you this is your last time, and she pawned him off to his dad. Right. Doughboy and them, they didn't even have that option. Their mom didn't have that option. You know, so she just sitting there fussing all day. And I know a lot of mothers like that. They just sit there and fuss at the kids all day, thinking that this is going to help the situation, and it's really just making it worse.
Right.
But they up under so much pressure, bro. And this is not only just in the Black community. This is in all races, all nationalities, communities, bro, where their mother is trying to pick up all the pieces and trying to play all these different roles, when in reality, she's only meant to play one role. You're a woman. Right. So for Doughboy and their mother, she didn't have that. They had two different fathers. she already was pushing the line on Doughboy, just like, you ain't nothing like your daddy. You ain't gonna be nothing. He was nothing. So she already putting this in Doughboy's mind. So Doughboy already got the mentality at like 10 years old, like, I'm thugging. You feel me? Whatever you talking about, lady, I'm not even trying to hear it. But then you had Rick, which is his brother, his little brother. He getting raised in the same household, but she treating him different.
Right.
You know, and as Doughboy's homeboy said in the house in the movie, they said, you know, she only treated him like that because they got different daddies.
Right.
You feel me? And it be like that in a lot of households, to where that mother, she's operating off trauma, and she going off of, your daddy did me like this, and I can't let it go. And whoop-de whoop whoop whoop. Then she got this other kid, and she fantasizing about, your daddy, he was a good dude. Oh, I wish I had him right now. You look just like him. And she treating him differently than she treating the other child, but they don't have the comprehension skills, nor do they have the life experience, nor do they have the textbook understanding and knowledge to look at the fact that you operating off trauma, moms, and you allowing that to dictate your decision making, which is harming your kids.
Right.
You feel me? To where now your kids, once they grow up into their early teens, or they grow up into a young man, they think they got it all figured out. So when they dealing with women, they only can go off of what they mama was teaching them to operate. You know, then whatever pops teach them on the side, they say, okay, I'm gonna roll with that too. But my mama, she be acting like this. You feel me? So what type of respect am I going to show women when the men in my life don't even show women that type of respect? So I know it's difficult to sit there and try to give a kid every single thing you have, because our mother, she was raising us, bro, 4 boys. You feel me?
Yeah. 5.
So,
Shit. Whether it was
oh yeah, you talk
you know
about
what I'm
Will
saying?
and
Yeah,
then,
Will
yeah,
or Lil
Will,
Pop.
then,
Yeah.
yeah. Then not only that, remember Lil Smiley came to stay with us.
Yeah.
So she, you know, she's opening up her home, and then not only that, you got all our homeboys. You know, as we thugging in the streets, we allowing them to come over. Moms ain't tripping, they spending the night, they eating up the food. You feel me? And we just running wild. But mom's like, look, y'all my babies. You feel me? So I'm with y'all. Whatever y'all got going on, I love y'all and I got y'all back.
Right.
So she was trying to give us the best that she had according to her understanding at that particular time. And I truly appreciate her for that. Because I'm not going to say that every single thing that I grabbed from our mother was just terrible and I had to do away with. No, our mother taught us some good values that I still hold on to today. That helped me to become a better man, and that caused me to want to actually change my life.
Right.
You feel me? So for all the mothers out there,
no, go ahead.
No, I just want to finish off and say, you know, for all the mothers out there, they like to think probably that men don't understand or don't nobody understand their situation. But I am here to say that I went through it. So I know it.
Right.
I grew up with it.
Prior to the movie, what is a lesson you just personally got about the movie that you carry with you from that point on? Even though you seen the movie a long time ago, being this elevated person that you are, what was something prior to the movie that you was thinking a certain way, but by seeing that movie, it's like, oh yeah.
That I caught on to back then, or that I caught on to now, and I'm understanding it better.
Like prior to the movie enlightened you on.
Well, back then, you know, Boyz n the Hood was one of my favorite movies growing up. When people say top 5 movies, Boyz n the Hood was always like my top 3. But I was a different type of guy. I was wired different. I was so infatuated with the gang lifestyle. You know, I was so like, I want to be this ultimate gangster. Like, I just love the thrill of it. So I wasn't really catching lessons back then that opened up my mind and caused me to really see things differently. I was just more so looking at it as, yeah, I want to be like that. You feel me? Yeah, I want to grow up and do these types of things and be looked at like these dudes, real G's, right? But as of today, me watching the movie and me having the experience that I've been through, I look at the movie today and the lessons that I grab onto. One of them being, especially with me being the Muslim in my faith, is that God's timing is perfect, and what is meant to be gonna be.